Hello everybody, welcome to the Clinch magazine. Before we begin, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Alright, let's get to the business. There is an apparent consensus in the MMA community that Jon Jones is the GOAT of MMA, and if you don't have in your GOAT list, then you don't know shit about MMA. But here is the thing, he is not. Jon Jones is not the GOAT of MMA, and I'll prove it. So let's start with what GOAT means. GOAT stands for the greatest of all time. Greatest of any field is a larger than life personality. There must not be any finger pointing towards him. He must have a flawless record, not necessarily undefeated, but rather convincing, inspirational, someone to look up to, someone whose career you can use as a textbook to teach beginners and novices and maybe even other legends. He may not have won every time, but you'll never find them losing morally anytime, and this is the key word. For the sake of this video, we will divide our case study into 5 different categories. First, out of the ring achievements. Second, fighting style. Third, robberies and controversial wins. Fourth, the juicy stuff, aka the drug test fails. And fifth, the Duckgate saga. We will start with the first one, out of the ring achievements. I will only quote the information in the public domain. We all know that Jon Jones has been arrested multiple times. The footage of him handcuffed and in prison suit is all over the internet. Also, he has been involved in domestic abuse. Apparently, he was beating his wife in front of his kids, and his kids called 911. This is so messed up. In another unrelated incident, he hit a pregnant woman with his car and fled from the site. This is a black mark on not only a professional athlete, but rather everyone. In yet another unrelated incident, he also sexually assaulted a waitress. If it were some less ranked fighter, MMA community would have completely disowned him. Look at how War Machine was disowned by the MMA community. But it is the light heavyweight champion, it is the undefeated champion, so he gets the pass. This is so shameful. Now moving on to the next part of this video, his fighting style. Jones' major strategy involves him maintaining his range, and he does that by 2 means. First, his oblique kicks and eye pokes. Both of them are controversial, but only one of them is the real deal breaker and puts a question on his legacy. Although I will discuss both of them. Let's talk about oblique kicks. A huge percentage of MMA community believes that the oblique kicks should be banned. And this is one of the most controversial moves in the MMA. Actually, the oblique kicks are the reasons many professional fighters have ended their career. There's a potential risk of ending the career, permanent injury. However, it is not illegal. And since it is not illegal, we cannot blame Jones for using it. But the eye pokes, which is the next a controversial move of Jon Jones. Eye pokes are the deal breaker. Jon Jones is known to be a heavy user of eye pokes. Intentionally or not, if it occurs in so many of your fights, it really gets tied with you forever, and you are known as that one guy who uses eye pokes as his winning strategy. Many analysts argue that it is simply a byproduct of him maintaining a range. Him extending his fingers while already extending his long arms causes the eye pokes. However, I would argue that it is intentional. Why, if you ask me? Well, we know that Jon Jones is a really expert fighter, if you can say. He is very well versed in his craft, and he can land shots on specific organs such as livers, kidney. So if you have that level of control on your strikes, then if certain strike is happening on a regular basis, there is something fishy. And this is why I believe that eye pokes are his intentional for increasing his winning chances. Now the next part is the robberies and controversial wins. His fight with Thiago Santos was really under scrutiny. A lot of people think that Thiago Santos really won that fight, but it was his first fight with Alexander Gustafsson that raised a lot of eyebrows. A lot of people believe that he actually lost to Alexander Gustafsson. Gustafsson won the first 2 rounds and the last 2 rounds were John's, and the third round was either one of them. But it was that one judge who really made people angry. He was so off the mark that it started raising questions, and many MMA fans are now believing that Jon Jones's record is undefeated. Well, not undefeated, but he has not technically lost to anyone, only because of the judges. Okay, these 2 fights might be close fights, and fans may have gotten it wrong, but his fight with Dominic Reyes, that was straight robbery. Actually, there is a record that Reyes was winning the fight. Dominic Reyes landed more significant strikes and total strikes as well in the first 3 rounds. So by that, he should have won the first 3 rounds, and the last 2 rounds would have been Jon Jones's, and by that he should have won. Reyes should have won. Although Jones did have more accuracy, but he was outnumbered. By that logic, it should have been Reyes whose hand was raised. Actually, there was a knockdown in that fight whose credit was not given to Dominic Reyes. I will put the statement of that MMA Nation and you can read it. It looks like any opponent who fights Jon Jones is actually fighting 2 opponents in that ring. One, Jon Jones, and the second one judge. Based on this data, Jon Jones should not claim himself to be undefeated. Now let's talk about the juicy stuff, the drug test. Jones actually failed 2 drugs tests prior to UFC 182, aka his first fight with Daniel Cormier, but they were cocaine metabolites, not performance enhancing drugs. If anything, they were performance decreasing drugs. But here is where we step into murky waters. Prior to his first DC fight, his testosterone level came, and it was alarmingly low. Although he passed the drug test prior to the first DC fight, it still raises questions. Low testosterone levels can be due to either balls not working, some disease, or using drugs or PEDs for which the side effects are low testosterone levels. Because you have been using exogenous testosterone sources, your own testosterone production has been halted. Your balls are saying, "Oh, you guys don't need me, fine, I quit." But Jones would go on to fail another drug test ahead of UFC 200, aka for Cormier rematch. On July 8th, 2016, a urine sample from Jones tested positive for 2 banned substances, clomiphene, which is an anti-estrogen substance, and letrozole, an aromatase inhibitor, prior to his scheduled rematch on UFC 200. These were banned by WADA. Jones would maintain his innocence, claiming that he was the victim of a contaminated product that he believed to be Cialis, which was later independently obtained and tested and found to be contaminated by the USADA. However, Jones would fail yet another drug test after UFC 214, aka right after Cormier rematch. And here's the juicy part. This sample was actually taken before his rematch with Daniel Cormier. This means that he was never off the roids before his rematch. The substance which they found in his sample was turinabol, which he would fail yet again before his rematch against Gustafsson prior to UFC 232. It was announced that it was a pulsing effect from his past failed test, and it was in a trace amount. But we can also conclude that it was ingested in a calculated amount that would be in his system for just enough time that by the time he would get tested, it would be out of his system. You can see the pattern here. He failed his drug tests against the two opponents he was susceptible to losing. Jones knew he wasn't beating Cormier in heavyweight division, so he shut down Cormier's challenge for the heavyweight fight. Jones knew he wasn't beating Cormier in heavyweight division, so he shut down Cormier's challenge for heavyweight fight. But Cormier was a legitimate threat regardless, whether he was competing in light heavyweight or heavyweight division. Cormier was actually undefeated with a record of 15-0 and 2-0 in the light heavyweight division before he fought Jones for the first time. Similarly, Alexander Gustafsson was 15-1 before he fought Jones for the first time, although Jones did not fail the drug test before his first fight with Alexander Gustafsson, and he really came close to beating Jones. And based on these incidents, one can speculate just how much long Jon was on performance enhancing drugs. Let's talk about the final and most important compelling arguments against Jones being the GOAT of MMA, aka the Duckgate. These days, Jones is a heavyweight champion. However, he won the belt against Cyril Gane, who isn't a good wrestler or a grappler. Yes, he has some submission wins, but it does not make him a good grappler, as he would lose to Francis Ngannou via wrestling, someone who isn't known for wrestling and grappling. Jones was expected to fight Francis, but the moment Ngannou beat Stipe in the rematch, Jones postponed the fight by claiming that he needs to bulk up for that and that he wants to be in the 240 and 250 range for the fight. At this point, Jones knew that he would lose to Francis because boxing was Jones' weakest area, which was Ngannou's bread and butter. And also Jones' wrestling would not have helped him, as the world saw how Ngannou nullified Stipe's wrestling. And so Jones would go on to sit for 3 years, and by the time Francis had already left the UFC. Francis Ngannou was one of the guys who was a true heavyweight and could have very well ended Jones's win streak, if not his career. Now that Jon is fighting Stipe, he's constantly getting asked whether he would fight Tom Aspinall, who is not some random heavyweight, but rather the #1 contender, the interim champ. Tom Aspinall is Francis Ngannou with everything turned to maximum. He has one-shot KO power. He has a very good wrestling and BJJ, and he is as fast as a flyweight. He has 14 first round finishes. Does that not raise alarms? All in all, Tom is one heavyweight who has more than 99% chance of beating Jon Jones on any given day, and Jones knows that. That's why he is avoiding Tom. So now that you know this, can you say Jones is the GOAT of MMA? Comment down below. If you like this video, hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.